President Lalovic, dear friends, welcome. President Lalovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear President Rogge, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, buenos dias. I am Nenad Lalovic, President of the Fédération Internationale des Luttes Associées. Let me begin by saying thank you for this opportunity to save our sport of wrestling. It is an understatement to say that today is the most important day in the 3,000-year history of our sport. And believe me, we feel the weight of that history, because remaining on the Olympic program is crucial to wrestling's survival. Since February of this year, millions of wrestlers, their fans and supporters have come together like never before to save our sport. And FILA has heard you too. We know why we are here today, and we are ready for the greatest competition of our lives. Please allow me to introduce our talented team. Mr. Jim Scher, Miss Lise Legrand, Monsieur Daniel Igali, Miss Carol Huynh. I'm certain that everyone here recognizes wrestling's long history and its role as a foundational sport of the Olympic Games. In fact, many of you shared similar thoughts with me these past few months, and I sincerely appreciate your support and guidance. It has helped us and me a lot. But we are not here to speak about the past. We are here to talk about the future. When we presented to the Executive Board in St. Petersburg in May, we outlined the significant steps that FILA was undertaking to remain on the Olympic program. I'm pleased to tell you that we've had a very busy summer doing just that. We are transforming FILA into the modern, effective member of the Olympic family that it should be. We promised 15 new and amended commissions, and now, in fact, we have 17. We also promised greater representation of women and athletes in our sport, and we will have at least one female vice president. The board will have at least 3 seats for women and an active athlete elected by their peers. We have also implemented the new competition rule changes, and the results have been astonishing. In fact, I have received letters from coaches all over the world excited about the new rule changes. One letter read, "The new rule changes have revolutionized the sport with high scores and more active wrestlers on the mat. And the new rules are already getting more kids in our school interested in wrestling." To me, that is the greatest symbol of our progress so far. More young people becoming more interested in wrestling. This summer, we began the work of preparing a wrestling world plan. This far-reaching program touches every level of our sport. And I would like to ask my friend and colleague, Jim Scher, to give you an update on the revolutionized FILA and the new wrestling.
Thank you, President Lalovic, and thank you for your great leadership. Let me begin by saying that I've been involved with wrestling virtually all of my life, and I have never seen our sport so invigorated, so focused, and so united as we have been this past year. Dear members, you've heard a lot today about what is and what is not a new sport for the Olympic Games. If there's one thing that you remember from this presentation, it is that wrestling is new in virtually every way. The EB's decision was a wake-up call for FILA. We've turned it into a huge opportunity for the sport and, we believe, the Olympic movement. Wrestling has significant, untapped strength and potential and is one of the most universal of sports in the Games. There are 177 active national federations with 30 million wrestlers worldwide and uncountless millions more in traditional wrestling. 71 of these nations sent athletes to London, with no less than 29 countries winning medals. This is the strong base upon which we are building a better and new sport of wrestling. Our plan to change encompasses 4 main areas. First, leadership. We're building a model of solid governance and management through our processes and our people. Second, presentation. Our rule changes and a new look and feel for the sport are making wrestling more exciting and understandable for spectators, the media, and our commercial partners. Third, exposure. We are developing an integrated marketing and media platform, creating new worldwide interest in wrestling and, importantly, new resources for the sport of wrestling. And last, participation. Greater participation by our member federations ensures growth at every level of our sport. We have made extraordinary progress over the past 6 months, just extraordinary. One of the best examples of this is adding 2 weight classes for women while reducing 2 for men in the Olympic program. This ensures greater gender parity, and we will use this new format in Rio, regardless of the outcome here today. I, President Lalovic, and the entire leadership of FILA are committing to our athletes and to the movement to create a new wrestling that delivers on its potential and promise. FILA understands its responsibilities and its obligations to our athletes, the Olympic Games, and to you, the IOC. Thank you very much. After this short film, Ms. Lise Legrand will address you in French.
Ancient Olympia. Mankind's earliest attempt at brotherhood through competition. Wrestling is the purest form of athletic endeavor. It is just you and your opponent, face to face, in a one-on-one struggle for athletic excellence. There can be only one victor, but the true honor is in the competition. Wrestling shares its past with the ancient Olympians and modern-day champions. But it looks to the future with a renewed passion. It is a global sport. The faces of tomorrow, burning with a desire to compete, can be found on almost every continent.
Let's go!
Wrestling is my life.
Wrestling is my life.
La lucha es mi vida.
The Olympics are the best.
The Olympics are the best.
I want to be the best.
I want to be the best.
My goal is to be a champion. I dream of being an Olympian.
Mon rêve, c'est d'aller aux Jeux Olympiques.
I wish my dreams to be true.
Eu quero que meus sonhos se realizem.
Merci.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon to everyone. I leave it to your imagination to understand how exciting it is to speak to the IOC, the whole of the IOC, when one was an Olympic athlete. In a way, it's scary, but I'll try and do my best. I'm here to speak to you about one of the greatest loves in my life, wrestling. I bet you're expecting me to say something different. Wrestling is probably not a girl's first choice, and it was the same for me. But I went into wrestling thanks to my father and my uncle, who both of them were wrestlers. And once I started, there was no going back. I loved wrestling because it made me feel like a trailblazer in the world of sport. In fact, there were even fewer women wrestlers at the time, and this gave me the feeling of being unique and proud, a feeling which has never left me. I can also tell you a small secret. I never thought that I'd be able to participate in the Olympic Games one day, and even less, win a medal. I am a wrestler because I'm convinced that it's a sport that makes me a better person. In fact, it made me an Olympian and brought me to a leading position, since I'm now a vice president of the French Wrestling Federation. The sport teaches us invaluable lessons, and in fact, wrestling goes even further. It teaches us humility. Believe me, nothing makes you feel humbler than being thrown to the mat and have your shoulders pinned to it by an adversary, and this in front of thousands of spectators, millions of TV viewers. But in fact, losses and failures make you stronger. People often ask me what is my favorite Olympic memory, and I have an unequivocal answer. It's the opening ceremony, where the world assembles in the same spirit and all the athletes are in one same place. That's the Olympic family. This moment of communion is unique in the world, and it is thanks to you, dear members, that this event is possible. Women's wrestling has been included in the Olympic Games only recently, and it took us 3,000 years to get there. I am here before you today in order to allow the future generations to be able to participate in the Games. So thank you for your attention and your invaluable advice you have given us in the last months. I would like to now introduce to you my colleague and fellow Olympian, Mr. Daniel Igali, who will be speaking English. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, and good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Igali, 2000 Olympic gold medalist. When I was in grade 5 in my native Bayelsa state of Nigeria, one of my country's first Olympic wrestlers, Apa Macaulay, came to my school to talk about his experiences at the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. He spoke about the city, the games, and the fact that he had to fly on an airplane for hours to get there. As a 10-year-old, the only thing I remembered from his visit was that going to the Olympics would give me the opportunity to fly on an airplane. 16 years later, when I achieved my dream and stepped into the Olympic Stadium in Sydney, I smiled at that memory of Apa and the story of the airplane. But now I know that the Olympics and my sport means much, much more than that. As one of 20 siblings growing up in a very poor Nigerian village, I can tell you that if I had not learned how to wrestle well, I may not have gotten very much to eat. So in a very real way, wrestling taught me how to survive. By age 20, I was the African champion in my weight category. But due to the political instability in my country at the time, I made a decision to apply for Canadian citizenship, where I continued my wrestling and academic education. At the Sydney Games in 2000, I was fortunate to win the Olympic gold medal, Canada's first, and in a very personal but unofficial way, Nigeria's first. I'm very proud of both of those achievements. One of my favorite coaches, Mike Jones, taught me that the hard work on the mats would translate into everything else I did in life. He put strong emphasis on schoolwork. He was so strict that if I did not complete my assignments in school, he would not let me compete. That was the best motivation in the world for me or for any kid. So I moved back to Nigeria to help young children, just like Coach Jones helped me. I wanted to create an environment where youngsters did not have to leave home to pursue their dreams, or to even have a dream, and to show them that to succeed in wrestling could give them the tools to succeed in life. Two of the young people that I coach now are also Olympians, and they've had the chance to attend university too. I firmly believe that wrestling made this possible for them. I am an example of how the sport of wrestling changed one life, mine, and how it can change the lives of other young people in my home country. To wrestle is indeed to be human, but often the competition is not only on the mats, it's often in the minds and in the hearts. Dear members, wrestling transformed me, and is now transforming itself. The rules are new, and FILA is completely new. I, along with every wrestler in the world, am thrilled with the changes in our new sport. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce my very good friend and fellow Olympic gold medalist, Ms. Carol Huynh.
Thank you, Daniel. Good morning, everyone. I am an Olympian. I'm Chinese-Canadian, and I'm a woman. But most of all, I am a wrestler. Now, being a wrestler means you rise to challenges, you're tough-minded, and maybe just a little bit stubborn. And that's why we're here today. We don't give up easily. Now, some of these traits I also picked up from my family. 35 years ago, my parents were refugees. And when they came to Canada, their simple goal was to create a better life for their family. But I don't think they ever imagined that their example would lead me back to China for an Olympic gold medal, or to London for a bronze. Olympism seems to work in mysterious ways. Now, as a kid, I tried just about every sport, and then I found wrestling. And like Lise, I fell in love with it. Its combative nature cultivated the determination and dedication needed in the pursuit of excellence. As a woman, wrestling gave me strength and confidence, and it empowered me to my full potential. It takes courage to step out on the mat with that tight singlet on, with no armor, no equipment, other than your hands, your heart, and your mind. Wrestling gave me the confidence to do that and to win. Now, one person who inspired me to be an Olympian is here today, and you just heard him speak. Daniel and I trained out of the same wrestling club, and it was really exciting to have a teammate competing at the Olympics. But it was also a reminder that women's wrestling wasn't in the games yet. And when Daniel won, he did this symbolic double jog around the Canadian flag, and it spoke volumes about him and the experiences that brought him to that gold medal. That was the exact moment I knew I wanted to be an Olympian, to represent not only my country, but also the women wrestlers before me who never got that Olympic opportunity. And we finally got our Olympic chance in the Athens Games. And now, here we are, fighting for inclusion again, but this time for all of wrestling. Now, I recently retired from competition, and I coach athletes working hard to make national teams and future Olympic Games. Now, these kids eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling, and they would be devastated if our sport were not on the Olympic program. So in a very real sense, I am here today for them. As an Olympian, I'm a part of history and a role model for young people, and I want future generations of young wrestlers to believe that they can make history too. And that is why we've spent the last 6 months transforming our sport. Dear members, we didn't just create a new FILA, we created a new wrestling. Now, on behalf of our sport, thank you all for your attention here today. And now we have one last film about the power of wrestling, and then President Lalovic will close our presentation in French. Thank you.
Today's the greatest day of my life. Today they're gonna know I'm a star. They better know I ain't having a bar. I'm gonna take it to the next level, foot in the pedal. I'm going for the gold medal, got my hand on my heart. And I swear that I'm gonna go hard until I feel it departing. I'm so excited, I think it's about time I had a little celebration and you're all invited. I couldn't give a damn, not even the slightest. My swag's on point and my flow's the tightest. I'll never sell my soul, God help me write this. Plus I know what a fight is. I've been through the struggle, in and out of trouble, couple of close calls. But you can't hear the pain anymore in my vocals. It ain't even because of the Pro Tools. I'm told to, I feel so complete. When life's this sweet, you gotta scream.
Screaming from your heart, feeling from your soul. Screaming from your heart if you mean it. Feeling from your heart, screaming from your soul. Feeling from your heart if you need it.
That's right, yo. I feel like Rocky on the steps. I could have drowned in the blood and the sweat. But instead I showed the world I don't pet. A worldwide athletic champion on deck. Nobody can't mess with my rep. No, I'm a seasoned vet and I'm the best. I'm as good as it gets. I'm the champion now, so I don't care, they cool next. I've earned my respect, now they're loving the way I flex. Man up in the offices, they wanting a major check. Solid as a rock, no butterflies in my solar flex. Never the nervous wreck, cool and calm. Keep sharp and focused, to stay out of harm. Cause I can't be got, you know I'm far too hot to be given a drop. Safe bet is that I'm never gonna give up the top spot. I'm keeping the spot locked, I'm throwing the key, now everybody sing with me.
Thank you very much and congratulations, President Lalovic. We will now take questions from the IOC members. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. You are not finished yet. Sorry, Mr. Lalovic. I thought this was the end of your presentation.
Dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, members of the IOC, on behalf of the wrestlers of the world, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for having given us this unique opportunity to save our sport. We are well aware of the fact that we have to earn and deserve the right of participating in the Olympic Games of 2020 and beyond, and to integrate our historic sport, which is now revolutionized in the new millennium. We hope that you are convinced that wrestling has listened, learned, and changed, and that it now will assume its duties and rights vis-à-vis of the Olympic movement. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for having listened to us. This brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Lalovic. Once again, my apologies for having cut you off.
Real question time. I have Mr. Sami Moudalal.
Mr. President, I love wrestling. It is individual sport. It was the core of the Olympic movement. It is very popular. It is existing everywhere in the world. Therefore, I ask, and frankly speaking, I heard that there was a wide corruption at the former federation. Medals of the game was sold. Second, what about the rules of the federation? How the rules and wrestling charter meet and face the corruption and the new challenges? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Moudalal. Monsieur Lambis Nicolaou.
Mr. Nicolaou. Mr. President, you know that I'm a Greek, and I was really moved and shocked by the result we took regarding wrestling. If you go into any museum the world over, you will see that wrestling is one of the foremost sports. You explained to us why the Executive Board decided as it did, because FILA was resting on its laurels. It did not really do anything to change, but it has now woken up and has done a lot. I want to add something else. I spoke to a dear friend who said to me, or he asked me rather, what would you gain with and by wrestling? And I thought of Gounod's opera, and I thought of the area of where money seemed to be the foremost argument. So I really wonder, is it really money that counts? I'm sorry, Mr. President, if I'm a bit sentimental about this whole matter.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Nicolaou. Prince Imran.
Thank you, President. I'd like to just ask the same questions I asked to the previous presentations. Firstly, how many events do you have in the wrestling program in the Olympics? And how many athletes and how many technical officials participate? And then, what are these rule changes that have been made that are so significant that to make wrestling more interesting?
Thank you, Prince Imran. Sheikh Al-Sabah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for the excellent presentation has been given by the International Wrestling Federation. Mr. President, I am not a wrestler, but I believe always everywhere we go, we found wrestling there, and this was the first education in our Olympic movement and idols in our life. For that, I am building the headquarters of OCA, and wrestling one of the few symbol we are putting in our headquarters. Then I was surprised. This is not the question. The question, there was a mistake. This mistake make wrestling out of the program. Are you ready and willing to do due diligence and valuation very quietly to find where is the real mistakes which make wrestling the founder of the game, the sport will give always the tradition of the Olympism for the future? And are you ready to create a lot of things to improve this sport with keeping the tradition of the Olympic movement through the wrestling? This is the main question I like to raise. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, dear colleague. I have Ms. Ruggiero, Angela Ruggiero.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Would like to commend wrestling for their evolution and including 2 additional weight classes for the women in freestyle. With that note, wondering if there's any thought to evolving the Greco-Roman classification to also include women in that side. So as of now, my understanding is freestyle has both men and women equal number of weight classes, but Greco-Roman is exclusively to men. So just wondering what the progress to date on that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruggiero. Mr. Chang.
Thank you, President. As for the wrestling, it's a popular sport with very small investment. Just they need a very cheap mattress and one costume and shoes, that's all. You can play anywhere wrestling. But problem is that since Professor Milan Ersegan, he made an evolution in the competition regulation. After that, around 10 years gaps, no evolution happened. That's what I think your mistake. So, in fact, as for the sports, popular sport, wrestling, one of the best. But you have to still go forward for the evolution. I will be very happy to see the Olympic Games wrestling again, but it's up to you. You have to go ahead with the evolution, not revolution, evolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chang. I receive many more questions. Could I please ask all those who want to put a question to do it now, and then we'll stop the question time, and then Mr. Lalovic will continue. Or Mr. Tony Kuri, and that is the last question.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, I will be speaking in Arabic. Thank you, Mr. President. I started out as a wrestler, and I learned a very good lesson because I had to fight against poverty by wrestling to get on in life. Wrestling is a very popular sport, mainly practiced by poor people, and the clubs in the Lebanon anyway, there are many athletes who wrestle, and the first medals that the Lebanese athletes won were in wrestling in 1952. All the national federations and international federations have bad times, and then sometimes the federations make a very big leap forward in quality. Just think of what happened in boxing, in the International Boxing Association. We know that wrestling has gone through difficult times under leaders and management that wasn't really very good, but we can see now that there are fantastic champions in wrestling, and we really trust this federation. We would like to keep it in the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khoury. Mr. Lalovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like, I don't know if I keep the order of the questions.
It's not important, as long as you can reply to everyone.
First of all, I would like my colleague, Mr. Jim Scher, to answer the question from Prince Imran about how many events we have on the Olympic Games and about the rule changes.
Thank you, President Lalovic, and thank you, Prince Imran, for your question. Wrestling had, prior to the upcoming games in Rio, 7 weight classes for Greco-Roman, 7 weight classes for freestyle, and 4 weight classes for women. In the Rio Games, wrestling will have 6 weight classes for women, 6 for freestyle men, and 6 for men's Greco-Roman, creating greater gender parity. The total numbers will be 1/3 between each of those, and roughly 340 athletes total were in the games in London. Technical officials would number, I believe, around 100. Mr. Lalovic can correct me if that's over. Let me talk a little bit about the rule changes technically, and then I'll ask Daniel Igali to talk about the rule changes in terms of the impact on the wrestlers. The rule changes at their core, although very technical to the sport, create exceptional new action by rewarding more points for wrestlers who are using active takedowns versus defensive takedowns. For example, a takedown from feet to the mat is now 2 points versus the 1 point where it was previously. However, the largest change that's created more action is moving from 3 2-minute periods to 2 3-minute periods with cumulative score, giving the wrestlers incentive to wrestle the entire match. And it's been well received around the world, but Daniel is a former athlete and now a coach. He can tell you how the athletes and coaches feel about the new rules. Daniel?
Thank you, Jim. What has happened in wrestling over the past 6 months essentially means that if you are a wrestler and you've not been following up on what happened over the past 6 months, you completely get lost. The rule changes have essentially made wrestling a lot more exciting to watch. Scoring has doubled. All the reports we get from all over the world, and especially in Nigeria, where we've had our national championships just last month, indicates that so many more people come to watch wrestling now. The athletes now feel that they make the decisions on the mat, and the referees have very little chances of affecting the outcome of a match. Because if you wrestle offensively, you get rewarded for wrestling offensively. So I think that has made wrestling a bit more exciting to watch, and a lot more interest from wrestlers who, before this time, felt that a lot of matches would go to clinches, and it was giving trouble to people who were watching as well.
Thank you, Daniel. For the question asked by Ms. Ruggiero, I will ask my colleague, Carol, to answer about the Greco-Roman and women.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Ruggiero, for your question. On our FILA stance on Greco-Roman wrestling, I just wanted to say that when women's wrestling was being developed in the 80s, there was actually freestyle wrestling as well as Greco-Roman. However, there was more of a natural progression towards freestyle as there was more interest and opportunities with freestyle wrestling. So Greco-Roman wrestling just kind of was not something that women wrestlers had been interested in. Now, this being said, FILA is open to having Greco-Roman wrestling if there is interest from women's wrestlers. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I would like to answer to the Sheikh Al-Sabah on his question about the crisis we felt in and about the mistakes that led to us in this position. We have made mistakes. We admitted it, but we decided to listen and learn, and this is the only way to be a partner of the IOC and a member of this family. We are aware of our mistakes, and they will not happen again. We have to regain our place by modernizing our federation, and we will continue to do it every day. We have to update our sport like any other sport every day. We have changed the constitution. Our constitution became much more democratic, with more women in the governance, with athletes in the governance. We have made our referee commission absolutely independent from the governance. This step was taken this summer after St. Petersburg. We have decided to compete already in Rio with 6 women categories. And we are, to make our sport more competitive, we have to rebuild our house, our federation. The federation is just an accessory of the sport itself. We are developing the World Wrestling Plan. The World Wrestling Plan is a global plan for wrestling spread all over the world. So it works on 3 levels. FILA, continental councils, national federations. Preparation of our athletes, of referees, of administrators, coaches, everything is absolutely planned with this plan. We believe that a good system builds our federation. We want to have a system that we didn't have before. And I think that we are on a right track to succeed. We will continue to work from Monday. We have the next World Championship to show how we implemented our rules. We have improved also work with medias, TV translations, social networks, a lot. And this is the way how we fight the crisis. Continuing to answering to the question of Mr. Chang about the evolution of wrestling. This is practically the evolution of wrestling. Evolution of wrestling, like any other sport, as I said, must to be updated, modernized, to face the requirements of your organization, our organization, and we have to follow it. Our sole partner, the sole partner of our sport is the IOC. To answer to Mr. Kuri, as you said, Mr. Kuri, you have learned a lesson from wrestling. Now, wrestling has learned a lesson from you all. And we are ready to continue to learn and to listen. the question by Mr. Lambis is also about as I understood well, the future organization of our federation. I think that building a system to govern our sport and make it absolutely transparent, we are again on the right track. The first question and the last one of 7 about the rules of the federation. We have the rules. We updated them, and everybody has to follow them, as well with our World Wrestling Plan. These were the answers, dear President, on the questions we have heard this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for the answers. I will now greet you, and we will stay in the room. Please don't go, because we're going to vote.